G'day. In this video, we will preview the Scourge of Ghyran rules for Seraphon. Scourge of Ghyran is offering each faction a set of seasonal rules that will be match play legal for the next General's Handbook, Season 25-26. Now, as per the Great Plan, Seraphon has gained 3 new heroic traits, a new set of monstrous enhancements, as well as a new alternative Warscroll for the Sora's Old Blood on Carnosaur. This unit does have a separate pitch battle profile that can be substituted for the unit's original Warscroll. You can't include both the Scourge of Ghyran and the original Warscroll in the same list. You can include them in an Army of Renown, just not in a Regiment of Renown. So let's get straight into it and manifest our new set of rules. Seraphon has gained 3 new heroic traits that are added to your existing 3 options. Keeper of the Old Ways is a once per turn reaction for when you declare the Further the Great Plan ability. You can pick 2 different asterism abilities instead of 1, and they can both be used in addition to the one that you picked in the deployment phase. Traditionally, you would select your asterisms based on what you think would have the biggest impact, especially in those early rounds. Taking this heroic trait might be worth running an asterism that you know will be easy to trigger in round 3, even if it means choosing one that isn't necessarily the most optional for those first 2 rounds. Banking instead on the power of the 3rd through to 5th battle round spike by having those 3 active asterisms. Now, it will require selecting a hero that can survive long enough to get to that trigger point, and it's a hero that's likely easy to protect or will stay away from combat, for example, like your Slan. There are 2 asterisms that are universally applicable to any Seraphon army, which would be your Rend -1 and your +2 to the movement characteristic, while the other 2 will require you to have certain models, for example, like your companion weapon abilities or having a wizard in your army. So to make the most of this heroic trait, you'll want to build a list that can meet and take advantage of your asterism requirements. Child of the Stars is a once per game passive ability that when the bearer is slain, before you remove it from play, you get to roll a dice, and on a 3-up, the unit that's bearing this heroic trait is not destroyed, the remaining damage points will have no effect, and the unit returns with D3 health remaining on it. Now, this trait can be helpful for keeping that important hero on the table, like your Slan, to continue generating those celestial reinforcements, or keeping that old blood on Carnosaur fighting a little longer. This trait is pretty self-explanatory. Finally, Chosen of Quetzal in any combat phase lets you pick a visible, friendly, non-monster skink unit that is in combat and is wholly within 12 inches of this unit. On a 3-up, the target can move up to 8 inches, and it includes moving through combat ranges of enemy units, but it just cannot end its move in combat. This ability has a wide range of target options like your Pterodons, your Raptidons, your Hunters of Hawachi, your Spawner Chotek, and your Skink Priests. The 8-inch move is enough for that unit to get out of combat, even after any 3-inch pile-ins and 3-inch weapon ranges from a unit that has charged you. This isn't a complete get-out-of-jail-free card because you could be surrounded or blocked out by impassable terrain, so just be mindful of your surroundings. Because this ability does not use the target's move characteristic, it will be unaffected by abilities that reduce the movement value, and it can be used once every combat phase. Seraphon has also gained a new set of monstrous traits, which are enhancements that can be only given to monsters. So the units that are eligible for these traits will include your Carnosaur variants, your Troglodon, your Bastiladon, and your Stegodon. Titan of the Land is a passive ability that makes the bearer count as a terrain piece for the purposes of picking the targets for the Realm Shaper Engine's Power Unleash ability. The bearer won't take any damage from this ability, and you'll find that it is much easier to trigger the ability on a moving target rather than a fixed point on the battlefield, though it will mean that the monster has to already be in combat in your hero phase for an enemy unit to be affected by this ability being within 3 inches. Now, your tough monsters like your Bastiladon with the Arc of Sotek is probably a great, if not the best recipient of this trait, as its Warscroll ability will even offer more mortal damage in combination of this particular trait. Ancient Defender is a passive ability that adds 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by a unit's companion weapon. Now, this ability doesn't state that it's only for combat attacks, so you can use it for ranged attacks like on the Troglodon. The clear winner for this trait is the Carnosaur, as it's by far the deadliest Seraphon monster, with the new Scourge of Ghyran, Old Blood in particular, being the most effective user given that the damage and attack boosts from the mount it's received, and you'll see more of this in the later video coming up pretty soon. After that, the next best choice is either the Stegodon or the Troglodon, because neither of them rely on their riders to deal much of their damage, and the Troglodon specifically has companion on both the ranged and their melee weapons, so it means it's going to get double value from this trait. If nothing else, it's an extra risk-free means of getting a +1 to hit, allowing you to get all that attack somewhere else if necessary to maintain the efficiency from combat for 2 separate units, or you just don't rely on the all-out attack given the changes that are coming very soon. Finally, Armor Cruncher adds a rampage that can be used in any combat phase. It lets you pick an enemy unit in combat with the bearer, then you roll a dice, and if the roll equal or exceeds the target's save characteristic, they'll subtract 1 from the save rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. Now, the ability is going to get easier to trigger on the higher save units, things like your Iron Jaws and your Slaves to Darkness, that would have a 2 or a 3 up save, and it does obviously become harder to trigger with things that have a terrible save, things like Daughters of Cain and Flesh Eater Courts, who rely more on their wards and don't have the best armor save going around. Now, obviously, this will also have no effect when targeting ethereal units like your Nighthaunt. The last key update here is that you've gained a new alternative Warscroll for the Sora's Old Blood on Carnosaur. Now, the Scourge of Ghyran Warscroll is optional. You don't have to pick it. If you like your Old Blood on Carnosaur as it is right now, you can completely stick to that one. You do you. This is an option. So, to help you make that decision, let me talk through some of the differences between the Warscrolls. When we look at specifically the Scourge of Ghyran version, it's traded its ranged weapons for an extra attack on the spear attack. Now, the jaws have increased its damage by 1, and the 4 limbs have gained an extra attack. The overall output of this version, the Scourge of Ghyran, is much higher than the current one, especially as the random nature of the ranged weapons made it a really unreliable source of damage. You have lost some of the utility value on the Carnosaur, things like it no longer has Strike First against wounded monsters on a 3-up, and the ability to add +1 to charge rolls when this unit charged in the same turn. Instead, you have gained a few new abilities, the first one being the Frenzied by Blood, which adds 1 to the damage characteristic of this unit's companion weapons while it's within 6 inches of a damaged unit or one that's had a slain model in the same turn. So chipping away at your target with some spell damage, your Realm Shaper Terrain Explosion, any shooting attacks available to you, combine that up with the improved base profile, is going to make this Sora's Old Blood on Carnosaur one of the most deadly profiles you have access to. When this ability is active and without any other bonuses applied, the Carnosaur will have 3 damage 5 attacks and 5 damage 4 attacks on top of the rider with the damage of either 2 or 3 depending on if it charged or not. It's also gained the Thunderous Roar Rampage, which lets you pick an enemy unit in combat. Then you roll a dice, and on a 3-up, the target cannot use commands for the rest of the turn. You'll be able to shut down all that defense that's going to stop your opponent from protecting themselves from this brutal assault, as well as a bunch of other situational commands. What can make this even more terrifying is if you take the new Child of the Stars heroic trait on the Old Blood, and obviously depending on the fight sequence and how it all plays out, you could force your opponent to eat 2 activations from the Carnosaur before they get to strike back if the Seraphon player has the next turn. Lastly, you have the Alpha Predator, and this ability is going to support your Agrodon Lancers by helping them not lose their rage tokens at the end of the turn while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. Now, Agrodons are momentum-based units, and you want to keep them charging and fighting, and they scale incredibly well, especially into the late game when they can keep up their tokens. So this ultimately makes the Old Blood an ideal support piece for anyone who's running Agrodons, or you may even want to consider Agrodons now in partnership with this Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. So there's a lot to like here for the Seraphon update, from the new Carnosaur Warscroll to the new monstrous traits to the 3 new heroic traits that can benefit players even if they aren't running their big dinos. The heroic traits can provide new tools to access more of your asterisms, to keep that critical hero around, or some of those movement shenanigans to keep yourself out of combat. All of these will fit perfectly into the Starborn style player. If you're a big monster lover like I am, the new Scourge of Ghyran Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur is not only a positive boost to its own Warscroll, but it also synergizes perfectly with those Agrodon Lancers to keep those rage tokens going. Even if you're not running the new Warscroll, you will get access to those new enhancements for your Troglodon, your Carnosaurs, your Bastiladon, or your Stegodon. It's hard, honestly, to pick my favorite. I think all 3 of those monstrous traits do have a use case, depending on what type of army you're running and how you like to run it. If you want a theory craft and list build, why not come over to the AOS Coach Discord server, where we've got dedicated spaces for Seraphon and all of the factions. I'm sure people are going to be talking about all of the different traits and which monsters are going to bring and what the new traits are going to do for their heroes. The link is down below in the episode description. I hope you found that valuable heading into the new General's Handbook, and keep dreaming about the stars. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1-1 on a spellcast.